Recording in progress.
You're live.
I now call the General Committee meeting to order. Tonight's General Committee meeting is being held with members of General Committee, members of the Executive Management Team, the Deputy City Clerk, and the City Clerk in the Council chambers. Members of the Senior Leadership Team and other staff are available to answer questions in person and via video conference. We also have 2 members of Council that are joining us virtually. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. For the consent agendas, I will read out the title associated with the recommended motion from the staff reports and items for discussion. Members of the General Committee may ask that an item be held so that it can be discussed further. If an item is not held, the motion that is printed on the agenda is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place this evening, and the recommendation will go forward to City Council for consideration at its next meeting, June 6th. First item on the staff reports is Needle Collection Kiosk Pilot Program additional information. Does anybody want that item held?
Hold, please.
Councillor Natalie Harris. Next item is the Downtown Barrie Business Association Governance Bylaw and related documents. Seeing no one held, that's approved on consent. Next item is the Heritage Park Master Plan. Seeing no one's hold that, that is also approved on consent. Next item is the Capital Project Status Report. See no holds, that is approved. Tenant water billing.
Hold.
Is that you? Okay, Councillor McCann held that. And next item is the temporary delegation of authority to the Chief Administrative Officer. See no holds, that's approved. We have several items for discussion. The first one is the parking restrictions on Getty's Crescent. See no holds, that's approved. CFB Board and request for support for the 2022 Canadian Armed Forces Day and Air Show. That's brought by myself as well. See no holds, it's approved. Council meeting schedule.
Hold, please.
Councillor Harvey. Economic development activity.
Hold, please.
Okay. Councillor Rietma. Barrie Police Services Board, panhandling and criminal activity.
Hold, please.
Councillor Thompson. So those are the items that were held. The Needle Collection Kiosk, tenant water billing, council meeting schedule, economic development activity, and Barrie Police Services Board, panhandling and criminal activity. And those will be discussed right now. The first staff report held was the Needle Collection Kiosk Pilot Program held by Councillor Natalie Harris. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I just wanted to hold this, obviously, and put it on the floor, and I want to introduce an amendment by adding an additional paragraph. I have circulated it to councillors. I'm not sure if it was on email, though, but it's basically, it's if you just scroll to page 3, it's alternative number 1. That the needle exchange pilot program be extended by 1 year, utilizing a modified version of the current kiosks at an estimated cost of $22,000 to be funded from the Reinvestment Reserve Community Benefit Reserve.
Okay, Councillor Harris, it's on the table. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. This is just thank you to Chief Mainprize and his team for bringing this forward. Not long ago, the pilot was finished, and we realized that maybe it was in our best interest to look into some alternative designs, because one of the bigger problems that was happening with these kiosks was the entrance or opening was big enough to put garbage in, so it was being used as a garbage receptacle. So the current kiosks that we have, we can upgrade them to modify them so that they're I guess this is not a new issue that's happening in cities. So with this fund, also it's really important to acknowledge that needle collection isn't going down. We're still getting a lot of calls and requests for collection that for needles that aren't inside of any kiosks. And so this is really important. I think we should extend it for the year, let the new council look at this again and see what other alternatives might be happening in a year from now, but just not doing anything, I think, is not the right choice right now.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Anybody else want to speak to this item? Councillor Rietma?
Yeah, I just have a question about this, and maybe it's Councillor Harris can answer this. In the report, it was very clear that the number of needles that are found scattered around has not declined at all. And so it doesn't seem like this program that we have going now is working. And I think it has, it does not depend on the design of the kiosk, but it just seems to be that people aren't using them, period. Any thoughts on that, why that might be? And I guess my concern is that why pursue something that isn't working?
Councillor Harris?
Yeah, I don't know if Chief Main Prize is on the line. I would kind of defer to him, maybe CAO Prouse or Ms. McAlpine, to maybe pull up any other stats that are sharing. But I don't think it wasn't working. Unfortunately, it was just being filled mostly with garbage. And our staff was having to go and empty these bins and not even really be able to collect the data as to what needles were even entered into that kiosk, because you can't siphon, go pull through all the garbage if there's needles inside. So I see Ms. McAlpine is on, so I'll let her step in here.
Ms. McAlpine?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Through you to Councillor Natalie Harris. I believe Chief Main Prize is present in the room. I'm not, maybe for obvious reasons, present, but actually we did not find a decrease in the number of needles that were found surrounding the bins and in the parks when the needle kiosks were utilized or in place. So they were in place. They were often filled with garbage, and often staff were still finding needles surrounding in the areas surrounding the kiosks. And if Chief Main Prize has anything that he wishes to add, I'll defer to him.
Chief Main Prize?
Through Acting Mayor Ward to Councillor Natalie Harris, that's correct. The reports that we got from a park staff was they were still finding large amounts of needles in the vicinity of the cans and in other areas of the park. It is a possibility that the cans were full and they were unable to utilize the can, but we're not sure. Because some cans were not full, and we still found needles in those areas as well. So both situations could possibly be accurate. It's just very difficult to tell whether they were full or whether people just weren't using them.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, anything else?
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess that's the point. I think we need to have a better model to actually have an effective pilot. The bins were filled with garbage, and we really were not able to determine how many needles we actually did collect that didn't end up, even if they were beside the kiosk. So that's why this is important for sure to carry on. We have lots to learn still, but I think it's fair to say there were needles inside the bins as well. So without the bins, then where? For sure on the ground.
Okay, Councillor Rietma?
No, I'll listen to what my colleagues have to say.
Councillor Owen?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Just following up on that line of questioning, Chief Main Prize, was that consistent across all the different locations of the bins, or were there particular locations that were where it was maybe working better? And does the extension of the pilot in alternative number 1, does that include all locations and the same locations?
Through Acting Mayor Ward to Councillor Elwin. So that there was inconsistent results found in all the different containers. It was really month to month. Some containers that had some needles in them and no garbage would change to the next month, because if someone packed it with garbage, then it was full. So it was really inconsistent across all the different locations. And yes, this does include modifying all of the bins and mounting them on a proper base to avoid additional vandalism.
Okay, thank you. I'm supportive of Councillor Natalie Harris's amendment, and here's why. it was a pilot project. So I think it takes some time for people to change their behavior, learn what the bins are for, how to use them. And I think with these, the modified version of the bins, with the better concrete base, with some modifications to prevent litter, that we could actually see this as a successful program for the ongoing future. I know anecdotally, I've done community cleanups multiple times a year at Milligan's Pond, and this past year, when the bin was in place, anecdotally, I found fewer needles. But again, that's just anecdotally, that's one location. But I think we should keep trying. This is something that residents have been voicing as a concern, and I think this is a good investment.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? Councillor Harvey. Sorry, my mistake. Councillor Congo had her sign up earlier. Go ahead, Councillor Congo.
Thank you. Sorry, just a delay in my unmuting. Thank you for that. I am in full support of the addition to the motion, and I was wondering if Chief Main Prize or staff could speak to if the health unit has had an opinion about whether or not this pilot should continue. I sit on the board. We have had various recommendations recently go forward provincially related to the opioid crisis, but I'm not aware of a formal position on the needle bins. But to me, it would behoove us to continue this, considering there are still many suggested efforts that we are recognizing locally, as well as across Simcoe County and Muskoka. Do we have any sense or awareness, or have we done any engagement with the health unit specific to this pilot status?
Chief Main Prize.
Through Acting Mayor Ward to Councillor Congo, we did consult with the health unit, and some of the discussion included the units that they have in place. The health unit has units in place at CMHA as well as up at their location, which are functioning well for them. A lot of the people looking for additional supplies will exchange them when they come in. So those units were working well. I think they were optimistic that the bin program would continue, but when we provided them the information, they understood our decision at the time.
Thank you, Chief Main Prize. And then follow up. And I know that they are strategically placed for those health unit ones specifically. Is their bin style the same as our current, or have they adopted the modified ones?
Chief Main Prize.
Directing Mayor Ward to Councillor Congo, I believe that their bins are the traditional style. Theirs are in a location that are more actively monitored in their proximity to the building on private property. So I believe that's why they felt they were working properly.
Thank you. And another follow-up question specific to timing of this pilot. Could you remind me, should we extend it when the review happens around location? So are we actually coming back with suggestions about maintaining the current locations, or are we going to go through a process of potentially looking at a recommendation of some location changes? So I know we've had differences around maybe location conversations because of COVID and because of just where individuals might have been relocated in general that may have been using this resource through COVID. Now that some of those housing or locations are changing, are we seeing that the location of individuals might provide an opportunity for us to look at if the locations are good to continue as is, or should they actually be moved?
Okay, I'm not sure if that's for Ms. McAlpine or Chief Main Prize, but whoever wants to take it.
Through Acting Mayor Ward to Councillor Congo, we did have some discussion with the Parks team to determine where they thought the bin should be located. There's one that we plan on moving should the program continue, and we'll continue to have discussions with them before we put in the concrete bases that they're best suited. Obviously, the bins are located, they're limited to being on city property. We can't mount them on private property, but we will continue the discussions before we pour the bases to mount them to try and put them in the ideal location.
And then I'm assuming because we are looking at that potential investment in a more secure pouring and a concrete structure, that would we continue to even consider relocation, or this is going to be a permanent ongoing situation? Location would then be removed from an annual consideration?
Through Acting Mayor Ward to Councillor Congo. Should we pour the bases in those locations, moving would be more challenging. There would be an addition, everyone we moved after that would incur the same cost to put, unless there was a suitable location there would likely be an additional cost to move them to an alternate location, as per the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Overall, I guess in closing, very supportive of us, continuing to look at, the learnings through the pilot, but also in recognition of the current situation that we're facing as a city. I think it would be prudent for us to continue to provide a resource that does acknowledge that, we do want to support a safe disposal practice of needles, and that we're giving that option out there to the public. I would also say it aligns well, I think, where we're seeing public health units across Ontario, ours specifically included, who have some advocacy work before the provincial government on a range of items specific to the opioid crisis. And this ties into being, I think, an important resource that we support, making sure is available at least for another year.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kungle. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Not sure if this is a question for Chief Mainprize or another staff member. Just curious, during the tracking of this pilot, do we have rough numbers of how many needles were successfully put into these bins over the period of the pilot?
Through Acting Mayor Ward to Councillor Harvey. So when the bins are collected monthly, they're weighed to determine the number of needles that are inside the collection ports that are in the actual box. Due to the amount of contamination found in each kiosk, there was no way to accurately estimate the number of needles. Almost all kiosks had some degree of contamination in them, so we would really be guessing if we were to try and estimate how many needles were in the bins. We did certainly see some. There was needles collected, but it'd be very difficult to determine the actual number.
Great, thank you. So especially within point 5 here, where it's noted that the vendor will modify these units at no cost, it's quite apparent that the vendor has identified the fact that there's an issue with the current design. And I think it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't continue the pilot with the new modified version, where we'd be able to get a better accurate look at the uses around these bins. So I definitely will support it.
Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other, ask the people in the gallery that cannot speak during the meeting. Councillor Harvey's spoken. Anybody else want to speak to this matter? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? This is alternative 1 that's been put on the floor. All in favor? It's not an amendment, right? It's, I can't remember. It is an amendment. Sorry, it's an amendment on the floor to add alternative 1 as the second paragraph. So all in favor? Against? It's carried. So now the original, the main motion is amended. Anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Alwyn?
Just quickly, and I know I've said this before on this topic, but there's a more permanent solution available, and that's a supervised consumption site, and we're still waiting on the provincial and federal governments to move on that life-saving service, and we need them to move fast because people are dying at an alarming rate, and they're proven to reduce public drug use and discarded needles, so it's about time that we move on that.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody else? Comments? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of the main motion as amended? Against? It is carried. The next item that was held was the Tenant water billing. Councillor McCann, you held that item.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I would like to put this on the floor as printed, and I would like to reject staff's recommendation and put an alternative number 3.
Okay, just give everybody a second to look it up. You can start speaking to it, though.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Looking at the staff report, I think that what they're looking to do is be the most efficient as possible. And I think that on paper, I could agree that this is the most efficient way possible, is the recommendation. But I think that when you look at circumstances that you've got tenants that are dealing with the city and having the city be a buffer between the tenant and the owner of the property, I think that'll give some security to the people that are renting if there is a problem with their water bill. Alternatively, I think that the the homeowners would appreciate having that gap, between dealing with the tenants with the water bill and having the city interject, creating a better sense of relationship. And so therefore, I really do believe this becomes like a win-win-win, because the tenants will win, because therefore they'll have a buffer with the city. The homeowners will win because they have the opportunity to pay the $60, which would be the administration cost put out by the city to manage this interaction, this management. And if the homeowners don't want to pay the $60, well, then they don't have to pay the $60, and the bill can stay in their name. So therefore, that's why I'm recommending this alternative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Does anybody else want to speak to this matter? Councillor Owen, and then Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I won't support alternative number 3, the amendment, and here's why. Our staff have clearly recommended that this not be the course of action, because there are no full-time staff in finance. I'm reading directly from the report here. No full-time staff in finance, service Barrie, or water operations who are dedicated to the tenant water billing program. And I just don't think it's an efficient way of doing things, and we would lose the benefits of making this change to put the responsibility on the property owner. We would lose the benefits of potential water saving renovations done on buildings, as well as some of the other benefits listed in paragraph 36. So I won't support it this time, and we'll go with the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Yeah, I have similar concerns. It's very clear that it's not recommended. There's no full-time staff in finance. So I guess my question is to Councillor McCann, how does he propose that we deal with that concern that is listed in alternative 3?
Councillor McCann.
So just so I get this clearly, Councillor Natalie Harris, you're asking me, how do I feel that we can finance the administration costs put out by servicing the bills going to the tenants?
Where do you find, where, as it's clearly stated that there are no full-time staff and we won't have the ability to implement this, where should we find the staffing and funding to implement it if it's stated that we don't have that right now?
Yeah, it's actually stated in alternative number 3 that the $60 would be the administration cost put out if we had a typical year that we had last year to have it this year moving forward. That cost would be $60, and that cost would be given, that the $60, the price would be given by the homeowners. So it would be a net zero moving forward. What I would like to see also, if this does pass, that if $60 isn't net zero, meaning that we break even, that we increase that cost. So given the flexibility and given the compassion to tenants, so tenants, if they are in arrears, they'd be able to negotiate with the city and not with the landlord. And so I just think this is a more compassionate way. If you may or may not feel so, that's great. We'll find out in a few minutes. But to me, this is a great alternative. So everybody wins. The city becomes net zero. Homeowners have the ability to manage it themselves completely and take on that risk completely, or the tenants also can go through the city of Barrie, and the cost would be nothing, Natalie.
Sorry, follow up. So maybe I'll ask staff. So according to alternative 3, let me scroll to it again here. It's not recommended. There are no full-time staff in finance, service Barrie, or water operations who are dedicated to the tenant water billing program. It is estimated that during the year, a total of 4.69 full-time equivalent staff is being used for this program. This is a significant amount of resources required to collect a small portion of outstanding water receivables, while an additional charge of $60 applied to 5,000 tenant water accounts would generate $300,000 to help offset existing costs. More resources are required to manage this program. So staff, I'm wondering if this passed, how would that work if it's clear we don't have the staffing, and what would that cost if we found the staffing to make this alternative work? I think it was Ms. Harris that
think
did the report.
Mr. Miller maybe will answer this. Is that right?
Yes.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Harris. So alternative 3, as it states, it was really taking the total cost of $300,000, roughly dividing it by the $5,000 tenant arrear accounts to come up with the $60. The motion doesn't ask, the alternative doesn't recommend adding more staff. So while we may charge the fee, and it may be a deterrent for some landlords, they may decide to manage it themselves, the problem still exists. So we would still have to kind of take the look at, if we have this fee coming in, the next step probably for staff would be to come back through the budget cycle and perhaps ask for more resources, which is not really the intent of what we're trying to do. I think where this came about was we were trying to be more efficient with what we have. And as part of that exercise, we knew this is one area that utilizes a lot of existing resources at the city. So we brought in our Lean Six Sigma group to take a look and to find a way as how can we do it better. And they did a pretty thorough analysis, and the recommendation, the finding was basically one property, one account. And that's kind of the basis of why we're here today and bringing it forward. So alternative 3 is a fee of $60 that might help deter it, but it won't really solve the problems that we're facing, as there's no additional resources tied to that.
Perfect, thank you. So I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Barrie Ward. I'm going to declare potential pecuniary interest on this specific amendment, and I was kind of consulting with my colleague Jim Harris here, just because the amendment as written has the implication of money, and I'm a landlord. So I know Ms. Craig has said that owning rental properties is not just like business as usual. However, I may not have depending on if the amendment fails, I may not have a potential pecuniary conflict on the main motion. However, I'm going to consult with the Integrity Commissioner between General Committee and Council. So I'm going to declare conflict on both the amendment and the actual motion. So I'll just recuse myself at this point.
Okay. Madam Clerk, has that been?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Ward, it has.
Okay, it's been recorded. Councillor Harris, I think. I'll come back. Councillor Harris?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I would be declaring an interest the same as applies to Councillor Morales.
And the reason is?
I'm a landlord as well.
Landlord,
yeah,
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, has Councillor Harris's conflict been recorded?
Yes, conflict? Deputy Mayor Ward, it has.
Okay, thank you. Uh-oh. Councillor Rietma?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have a conflict.
Okay, sorry, I think Councillor Kungal's next. I thought you were going to be also
enough.
declaring a conflict. Is anybody else going to declare a conflict, first of all? Okay, I'll turn over to Councillor Kungal, then I'll come to you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Barrie Ward. I will not be supporting the amendment. I thought staff did a very thorough job. I think, Mr. Miller, you spoke to that, and I was actually quite impressed that your staff brought through a process change that leaned the organization to save over $300,000. So very supportive of the direction setting, and will support the original motion, not this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Rietma.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. I'm also not going to support the amendment. I think the last line in Alternative 3 says everything. While an additional charge of $60 is applied to 5,000 tenant water accounts would generate $300,000 to help offset existing costs. More resources are required to manage this program. So we're not talking $60. Who knows what we're talking? I think the other part of it is that it's this is a program that we are in at the moment to assist landlords, and I'm not so sure that that is the proper role of the city, and that's why I'm quite happy to support the original, but not Alternative 3. Thanks.
Does anybody else wish to address this item? Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Question for staff, probably Mr. Miller. Maybe if you can just explain a little bit more, because in one aspect it talks about adding one staff member, and I can't imagine that one staff member would exceed $300,000, even including benefits and everything else. How many staff do you believe you would require to be able to accomplish the job if this amendment were to pass?
Councillor, Mr. Miller?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward. So as the report describes, currently right now it's estimated that there's 4.69 staff managing what we do today, and that includes finance, service Barrie, and water operations. So the city of Barrie's, in the report, there's roughly 5,000 accounts. As you know, the city of Barrie's in growth mode, so we're going to be adding quite a few new residents each year, which means a lot more water accounts being set up. So I would probably say to you, I can't give you a definitive number, but as I say, right now we're using four resources to manage what we're doing today. And these are resources that are not full-time to this function. They're doing the best that they can with what we have. But I would anticipate it's within that ballpark is what you'd be looking at if you were to really to allocate resources and then also plan for the growth that's coming.
Okay, just a follow-up if I could, just because part of it I didn't really get much clarity on. Would you estimate that one full-time person would be able to do what 4.5 people have been doing part-time? Or is this a situation where you're thinking that you would at least need 2 full-time employees? Because then, yes, we would potentially be surpassing that 300K mark.
Mr. Miller?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, considering its requirements of operations staff who actually have to go visit residents, right? Those are skill sets they use too right now. I'm assuming they would have to continue to use too. I would say in the finance shop right now, I'd probably say 1 to 1.5 would be the number I'd suggest that we could utilize. And again, that's just an estimate at this point.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. It still seems like the 300K would cover even if it was 1.5 full-time employees, but I guess I'll wait and see if anyone else has anything to say.
Okay, Councillor McCann?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. You know, there was a comment just made that it'd be more that we'd get the money owed by the household faster if it came from the landlords. And what proof would we have that the landlords would pay this fee faster than the tenants would? I know ultimately the risk is 100% put on the homeowner, but I'm just, you said that it would be, I think, more efficient getting it from the landlords, and I'm just curious, why do you think that would be?
Mr. Miller?
So through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, so I think if you step back and understand the process, so when people rent out homes, there's a lot of tenant move over, right? So people move in, we open up an account. People move out, we close an account, we open it out. We open up a new one. When tenants leave, there's often balances on their accounts, so we then have to address that. The chronic outstanding balances that aren't being paid, water operations at the request of the landlords goes and turns off the water, which they pay a fee. Then when that's resolved, the water gets turned back on, water operations goes back out, turns it on, and we continue to move along. So there's a lot of administration time to service 5,000 accounts. It's not a simple clean one account up. It's an ongoing challenge. There's a lot of phone calls. There's a lot of angry landlords who complain we are not turning the water off fast enough. We have a lot of tenants that then get these letters calling and asking how can we resolve this, and we spend a lot of time dealing with them. So the concept being, if you eliminate multiple accounts where we have to open and close, and you have one account for one property, a lot of those inefficiencies go away. And that's really the concept of it. It's not so much landlords are going to pay quicker than tenants, it's the overall package of how you manage it. There's also efficiencies, as the staff report calls out, from if you're not seeing the bills and you're not paying attention, you may have leaks in your home that you're renting out. So a lot of water's being wasted because they're not addressing leaky faucets, leaky toilets, that sort of thing. One of the benefits, if the landlords are paying more attention to the bills, and the great thing about the City of Barrie, you can go online and monitor what's going on in the property from meter use, then there's that opportunity that they will invest a little bit more to lower the water bills by fixing those leaky faucets. So that's really the general concept. It's not so much that we expect landlords are going to pay quicker, which I imagine they will. It's all the processes behind it would be eliminated.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Miller. You know I've got the deepest respect for you. We go back and forth quite often on financial topics. I just think that I'm going to repeat myself because I started off by saying I understand that your recommendation is the most efficient. There's no debate there. I agree that's the most efficient. But we don't live in a city, we don't live in a world where all we do is do what's most efficient. And I think there's a lot of people in this room right now would agree to that. And so my last maybe pitch to maybe see if council can understand where I'm coming from, that I think this is better for people who rent homes. Because if you're not taking the risk on, well, then the homeowner's going to take the risk on. And if they're going to take that risk on, they're alternatively going to charge more for rent. That's just how business works. And so therefore, yes, this is more efficient, but I'm trying to look at the human element here, and I think that we've got a real efficient group at City Hall. I think if we can have a net zero, if $60 isn't the money, and $100 is the number, which I talked to you, Mr. Miller, about this, then we should charge $100. Because the beautiful thing about this model is that the person who's renting always wins, because they're going to be able to manage their own risk with the city of Barrie. Eventually, the last risk is always put on the homeowner. And therefore, the homeowner can opt out, either keep me involved in a monthly basis with the tenant, so I know exactly what's going on. They get all the notices, the same as the tenant would have. And if they want to pay that $60, or maybe we'll find at budget time it's $100, they can say, yeah, I think $100 a year is worth my time having the city manage it. And then the tenants can say, yeah, I'd much prefer dealing with the city than the homeowner, because the homeowner and the tenant, if anybody here has rented or has been a homeowner, there always happens when money gets involved, emotions get put up. And that's when you have conflicts within that relationship. So this is just one way, at no cost to the tenant, is going to relieve some of that tension. So if people don't see eye to eye with me, I can accept that. I'm still going to keep my motion on the table, my amendment. I think this is better for the city. I think it's better for the homeowners. And quite frankly, I think it's best for the tenants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Any other comments or questions? Oh, Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thanks. Just a follow-up question. I've just been going through the chart again, and I couldn't quickly find it in the staff report. Does the City of Barrie collect a deposit in the current shape? Because it appears that most of the municipalities in the comparison who do bill tenants tend to get a deposit off the start.
Through you to Deputy Mayor Ward, so we do not collect a deposit. Not all municipalities do. Some do, as the chart had indicated. Again, the recommendation was from the point of what's, from an efficiency standpoint. If we're going to collect deposits, that's more administration costs. So I think it would make the cost of administering the program more costlier, because we have to track who's the deposit from, make sure we're giving it back, that sort of thing. So it's heavy on administration.
Okay, thanks. I will support this amendment. As a former landlord, I did take that risk, but it's one of those things that it can be a significant risk, as we've seen sometimes, where all of a sudden water bills rack up into the thousands, and to think that just because a landlord is the owner of the home, that it falls on their shoulders that one of their tenants did it. That just doesn't really sit that well with me. And if we're able to run a program where the administration fees collected are going to cover the staffing costs, then I do think that it's the best of both worlds for both parties involved. So I will support this amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other comments or questions? I had a couple. Mr. Miller, if I've read the report right, Appendix A, we do about 400, we shut off the water to about 400 properties a year. Is that correct?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, that's correct, exception being the last couple of years.
I guess I'm a bit surprised to see that. We are allowed to? It's perfectly legal to shut a tenant's water off?
Yes, we've been doing it, so yes, it is.
Okay, and so under this new system, if the original motion is adopted, would landlords still be able to ask that the water be shut off if the tenants hadn't been reimbursing them for the water bill?
So no, we wouldn't be shutting off the water.
You would never shut off water again, is what you're saying, or?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. If there's no other comments or, sorry, Councillor Alwyn?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I think it's just important, I think I'm one of the few renters on City Council, and I can tell you as a renter, Natalie too is, Councillor Harris is too, sorry. I can say definitively that as a tenant, and I think most renters that I talk to would much prefer having the landlord deal with water billing and have that inclusive in their rent. It provides more stability, and I think the question you asked yourself, Acting Mayor Ward, about shutting off water, more stability again with this model. So I think it's more efficient for the city, more efficient for usage of water, because it could actually encourage landlords to save more water, and then it's also better for the tenants. So I think all around, staff's approach is the right approach.
Okay. Then we'll have the vote on this. So this is an amendment, is that correct, Councillor McCann? Okay, an amendment to bring alternative 3. So all in favor? Opposed? It is defeated. So we're putting the original motion back on the floor as not amended. Any comments or questions? All in favor? It is carried. Oh, opposed? None. All carried. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Yes. Let's wait for the councillors to come back in. Okay, the next item held was the council meeting schedule. It's held by Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I'll put it on the floor as printed. Just a question to the mover of this motion. Either that or if he'll take a friendly. I like the idea around it. It's just I have a little bit of concern about changing our start time for council meetings to 6 o'clock opposed to our traditional 7. Only because a lot of people could be commuting from the GTA and stuff, and I think 6 o'clock could be a little problematic for some people to get here in time.
Are you making a comment, or are you asking?
Yeah, just asking if the mover of the motion would take that as a friendly. If not, I'll do it as an amendment.
Councillor Thompson?
Through you to Deputy Mayor Ward, Councillor Harvey, I will take that as a friendly and move it to 7 o'clock opposed to 6.
Okay. So the item on the floor is now to begin our meetings at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. Is that council and committees, or? Yes.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Yes, it would be council and the standing committee meetings, yes.
Okay. And keep in mind, if the next council wants to change things, they certainly can. Councillor McCann?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. And I'm going to be supportive of this, and it's more of a question I've always wanted to ask staff. And, at what population would staff be recommending that we actually have council meetings during the day and not at night? And I believe that the nighttime council meetings were designed because we're a farming community. And you know what? I've always wondered why we're at night, not the daytime. And obviously, I know there's some councillors that work out of town and wouldn't make it, but just when would that threshold be, if you can answer now?
I'm not sure if that was for CAO Prowse, but.
Through you, Acting Mayor Ward, Councillor McCann was looking at me, so I assume the question was to me. I will probably punt it to the clerk, but I think generally, Councillor McCann, the daytime meetings tend to go hand in hand with full-time members of council. And the City of Barrie has had part-time members of council, as we very well know, and that has gone with evening meetings, but perhaps the clerk has some additional information to add.
Ms. Cook, do you have any additions?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor McCann. No, Michael Prowse, Ms. CAO Prowse, hit it right on the head.
Any other comments or questions on this motion, which is to move meetings to Wednesday at 7? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Barrie Ward. I know there was some material on this. I don't see it in the actual motion, so I just want to clarify with staff. I know there had been some language about when the agendas were due. both for members of the public, for members of council to add things to the agendas. I don't see that in the actual printed motion. Is that just assumed, or is that to be worked out later? Because I did have a little bit just of maybe some feedback on deadlines for agendas.
I think that's actually for the city clerk, so Ms. Cook?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Morales, we are not changing the agenda circulation deadlines. One of the purposes of me moving the meetings to the Wednesdays is to provide council an additional few days to review the agendas, more time with staff, more time to work on amendments. So the agenda circulation days for general committee would still remain Wednesdays, and for council would be on Thursdays.
Okay, perfect. So, Councillor Thompson, I know you and I touched base on this. Would you accept a friendly to amend the Wednesday deadline to Thursday? And here's why. If you have a Wednesday meeting at 7 p.m. and you have really good discussion, you have really good interaction with the public, whatnot, you might add things to the agenda. And if the deadline was that day already 6 hours or 7 hours before, it's now going to skip 2 agenda cycles. So would you take a friendly just to change the Wednesday deadline to Thursday at noon?
Can I maybe just ask the clerk if that's a problem?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Morales, are you talking to add items for discussion onto the agendas? Because we have an internal deadlines set up for staff reports already, and so the circulation for it wouldn't really be any different than it is now, with the exception of the meeting being on the Wednesday. We would probably maybe look at deadlines for open delegations, or deputations to council, given the change, but that's something we would look at administratively, and we would report back at the first meeting, regular general committee meeting of the new term of council.
Okay, through you, Acting Mayor Ward, to City Clerk. So, and I know you already said, I just want to clarify again. What's due on Wednesday at noon?
Wednesday, sorry, thank you. It's Deputy Mayor, through Deputy Mayor Ward to Councilor Morales. Wednesday at noon, currently, we have, if it's a general committee week, deputation requests are due Wednesday at noon. Otherwise, it's an emergency deputation request for council. So those are deadlines we'll have to look at. Items for discussion are a week and a half in advance of a meeting, so the new meeting schedule shouldn't impact those deadlines. And staff report deadlines will still remain the same.
Perfect. I once again, through you, Acting Mayor Barrie Ward, to the clerk. So could there be a situation as presented, Ms. Cook, where the deadline's at noon, and then a member of the public watches the meeting at 7, and then wants to speak at the meeting the following Wednesday, and now the deadline was before the meeting? Could that be problematic, or, because that's what I'm trying to prevent?
Ms. Cook?
Okay. Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councilor Morales, we will be looking at the deputation deadlines as part of the change in the process, and we will report back as part of the meeting schedule at the first general committee meeting of the new term of council with those new deadlines.
Okay, perfect. No friendly, Acting Mayor Ward. It looks like they're going to take care of it internally before we approve it.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Morales. Any other comments or questions on this? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Against? It's unanimous. Thank you. Move on to the next item, which is the economic development activity. And Councilor Rima, you held this.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yes, I held this, and I'll put it on the floor as printed. I don't have an amendment, but I'm going to ask my colleagues to not support this motion. A couple of things. First of all, most of the information that's being asked for is already part of a series of reports that we've all had. If we need that information, I'm sure you could ask staff in order to get it. So I don't see there's any reason to produce another memorandum and put our staff to more work that isn't necessary. I think the other couple of things that I'm concerned about is especially a part where it says expectations for economic growth and housing affordability in 2022. I think That's asking our staff to speculate on what the future holds for this year, and I certainly don't think that's an appropriate ask for our staff. They're quite capable of producing technical materials, but to go out and speculate on what the future might hold, I think we should probably get our own crystal ball, and that way we will be able to look into whatever we're wanting to look into. I think the other B part, for example, it isn't a complete sentence. It just talks about business attraction and retention in 2022. So I'm not entirely sure what that means. And so I'm quite satisfied that we already have all of this information, and I really don't see the reason for going ahead with it. So I'm urging my colleagues to not support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Reitman. Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I do have an amendment on this, and it's to replace the first sentence to that the Director of Economic and Creative Development present to Council on June 27th, 2022, and to provide a memorandum within 60 days detailing the following. And then the rest of it would remain the same. And I can speak to that.
Okay. Everybody's got it? Go ahead. Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. I've had some good conversations with staff that this request would directly affect, and they have advised that they are very willing to do what's being asked. It might be a little bit of a tight timeline under the original motion. However, this information could very easily be presented a lot sooner than a detailed full staff report could be. And I know I had some really good discussions with Ms. Schlichter today about that, because this would really fall under her direction opposed to the CAO. I don't know if Ms. Schlichter wants to add anything to what I've just said, but with the amendment, do you feel that you'd be able to meet the deadlines that my amendment entails?
Ms. Schlichter?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Harvey, we will certainly endeavour to execute on the will of Council and could achieve a presentation for the June 27th deadline.
Great, thank you. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward. I just have a couple concerns. With G and H of the amendment, would that fall under Ms. Schlichter's portfolio? Or would that, I think to ask the Director of Economic Development about housing and stuff, I think that would fall under planning. So as a friendly, if we could remove G and H, as this isn't a part of the portfolio.
So he's asked for a friendly. First of all, again, just a yes or no. Is that a friendly?
It's actually through Councillor Harvey's amendment.
Oh, okay, that's right. Well, yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Yeah, I do share some of your concerns. I think there's a few points in this that I'm not even sure staff will even be able to fully comment on. But yes, I do agree there are some pieces in this that would definitely fall under the Director of Planning's purview. And if, I guess I'll put it to Ms. Schlichter as to what, obviously it's going to be her presentation. I think it's best that we put it to staff to see whether or not that is something that they feel that they'd be able to report on, because whether or not it would involve two directors opposed to just one.
Ms. Schlichter?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Harvey, items G and H would not be under the purview of the work of economic and creative development, so it would certainly require consultation and engagement with our Director of Development Services.
Okay. I guess back to the question of you asked for a friendly though, correct?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Yeah, I just, like I said, to involve another staff member and stuff, if we're worried about the economic development activities, I think we should stay there and not get in. And, you know, I think this was already answered by Ms. Banfield.
Yep.
There was 19,000 units, and there was really no rhyme or reason. Once we do our job of approving and stuff, you know, we don't have any accelerating tools, you know, through permitting or, you know, extensions and stuff like that. So I think it's sending staff on something they're unable to, you know, fulfill.
Councillor Thompson, I'm a bit uncomfortable asking Councillor Harvey to remove it as a friendly when it was Councillor McCann who put it on the floor. It might be easier just to move an amendment to remove those items if that's what you want to do.
Definitely procedure, yep. So I'll move an amendment to remove G and H from the item.
Okay, that's just 1 second. Oh, okay, because there already is one amendment on the floor, that's right, so, okay, I'll keep it in. So, the amendment is still on the floor to have a presentation from the Director of Economic, I've got to get your title wrong, Economic Development and Investment and Economic Development, anyways. The Councillor Rietma and then Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I was just going to ask Councillor Harvey, also for a friendly, if he would consider removing A and B from his motion or his amendment, simply that for the reason that asking our staff as to what their expectations are is kind of not a great exercise, because I don't think that they're experienced in prognosticating what the future will hold. And the second one is, I'm not sure what B actually means. So if you would be okay to remove A and B, then I think I might be able to support.
Okay,
if you would take that as a
question
friendly.
I have is maybe we'll wait. Once again, I'm just uncomfortable moving as a friendly when the mover of the motion isn't the one who wrote the motion. So maybe we can get Councillor McCann the floor, and then we'll go back to it. Are you finished? Sure. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I'll reserve on commenting on what Councillor Rietma is asking. You know, we have a housing supply problem, right? And we've got 19,000 units that we've approved and they're not being built. And I'm just trying to get around and understand why we think that we need a crystal ball to understand what the market's going to move forward when all we're looking for are projections. You know, it's a quote I tell my sales team and my marketing team on a weekly basis. Not having a plan doesn't mean you have a plan. And so we need to have an expectation that we have on everyone around. And I'm not looking for a 100-page dossier on why Ms. Lichter feels that it's going to go one way or the other way. I'm asking her to reach out to some of our developers, 5, 10, 15, I have, right? And have an official answer why they're not building, right? And I'd like to know what that official answer is, right? I don't think it's going to take a lot of time. I don't think it's going to take a lot of resource. And I want the business community and development community to know that we're standing beside them to build these units. So taking GH out or taking A or B out, like to me, like Stephanie Slichter can come back and do a presentation, which I'm absolutely supportive of. And way to go, Gary Harvey, Councillor Harvey. And it didn't occur to me that they would say yes, you know, to that such a short time period. So I'm thrilled that Stephanie Slichter and Michael's team are going to come and do a presentation and then give some type of report back. And I think like we're all missing maybe a piece of the puzzle here. This isn't about what Mike McCann wants. This is about our business community. So we want our business community to have to research City Hall, and I've actually had 5 of them today reach out to me. They can't find some of this information on our website. So if the information's already been written and it already exists, like it should, All I'm looking for is a document or a presentation, which I think is great, explaining this. And if Ms. Schlichter says that she can't answer 1 through G, that's great. I accept that. I'm asking the question. So therefore, I'm not exactly sure what all these intentions are, but I'm fully supportive of Councillor Harvey's amendment. I think it's excellent. It's one up mine in a better way, and I'll just say I support Councillor Harvey's amendment.
Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. My question is to Ms. Banfield. Don't we already have the answers as to why the units aren't being constructed? I'm maybe it's a bit of a rhetorical, but if we can run it down again.
Ms. Banfield.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Natalie Harris. Certainly we've had all sorts of different discussions with the developers. Sometimes we hear the projects are just more complex than they expected, and getting kind of all the infrastructure in place, whether it's in the built boundary or the secondary plan areas. We've been hearing about labor shortages, material shortages, COVID-related delays, market decisions on other projects of theirs. So there really are, I think every situation is going to be unique about why or why not projects are moving ahead.
Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you. I'm struggling with this motion because I feel like these are things that we have talked about and covered, and yes, it's of course good to circle back and focus on where we're missing, what gaps are there. But I'm concerned with putting so much on our staff's plate. I guess Ms. Schlichter is answering yes, and she will do her job as she always has if we request her to do something within a timeline. But this is a fairly extensive list at the very last minute and right before summer, when we've had many years of a term to ask a lot of these questions. I'm struggling with it. I'll listen to the rest of the comments. If there is an appetite around the table that other councillors do want these answers, then sure. But I'm kind of surprised because we do have a lot of these answers.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Morales.
Thank you. Ms. Schlichter, are you, objectively speaking, there were some comments made that maybe A or B were an unfair ask somehow of an ECDEV department. Could you objectively give the response if you and or your department could produce the ask of A and B?
Schlichter.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Morales. In terms of Part A, expectations for economic growth and housing affordability, that would be more related to market conditions, and we would look at third-party research as part of that conversation. It wouldn't necessarily be a personal commentary from my lens. And in terms of Part B, I think in terms of clarity, is it about the overall approach to how we look at attraction and retention as a department, or is it more about identifying specific activities? So again, pendant on the, I'd need some clarity in that lens in order to be able to respond accordingly.
Perfect, thank you. That's what I expected. I don't know why a crystal ball comment was kind of made alluding to your department. And Ms. Banfield, as for G and H, somebody made the point earlier that a bit of that information was presented a couple of weeks ago, and it's been, there's been dribs and drabs here. Would that be information that could reasonably be tied in together and then added to a report or presentation like this, or are G and H, again, objectively speaking, beyond the scope of the timeline that the motion has?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Morales, we could absolutely help Ms. Schlichter with that, and I could either give her the material or do a slide or two myself as part of this presentation.
Okay, perfect. Sometimes you save time just by asking.
Okay, so the motion on the floor, first of all, any other comments or questions? What if I could have the motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Jim Harris, didn't see your hand there.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. just noting, economic growth and the questions regarding the housing, and I'm thinking, isn't the building of housing a significant economic growth activity? So I was wondering how to connect those, and just wondering, and maybe this question through you, Acting Mayor Ward, to Ms. Schlichter. When you look at this A to H, in that, I don't think it gives a direction, but I should be answering my own question. Does it give you direction to really think about, when you talk about economic growth, will that be also contingent on the rate of housing starts that are happened? We have the 19,000 approved, but certainly if we got a windfall in number of housing starts, that would be an economic activity and growth item that would be significant for your report. Is that accurate?
Ms. Schlichter?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. To you, Councillor Harris. Certainly there is some connectivity. I think from our lens, our focus is on the business community. Talent is certainly something we hear, and so housing drives talent. So there is some interconnectivity between the two. If that answers your question, I'm not sure if I have it quite clear.
Yeah, close. I was thinking that, again, all that goes into the production of a home and the economic activity around all of that, would that be considered to be part of the economic activity of the report, given that housing creates a significant amount of activity amongst a variety of professionals and trades and retail and such?
Ms. Schlichter?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, sorry about that, to Councillor Harris. Yeah, certainly. Construction is an economic generator, and would be considered as part of all of the things that impact our economic growth and activity in the city.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions. So I would thank you that'll be part of the general economic activity included. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the question, could I have the motion read again? I'm not sure whether Councillor Harvey has it or the clerk. Oh, okay. And Anne-Marie, Councillor Kunkel, you can speak after this.
Okay. Sorry, it's just the amendment that we're voting on right now. So
correct.
That the Director of Economic and Creative Development provide a presentation to General Committee on June 27th that details the following. And then there's also the ask for a memorandum with the similar information within 60 days.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Kunkel?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Barrie Ward. I think I'm struggling overall because while we've got the main motion and then this amendment, the question while I'm listening to the conversation is really for what purpose? And so when I think a bit about where we're at in our term, content that we've already received by respective departments, and we've acknowledged the who is kind of responsible for what through A to H here. I don't know why we've got a deadline for June. I don't believe we're making decisions based on this information, and it's a net new ask. And it sounds like it's already there, but might just be a packaging of information. So I struggle to support the amendment because overall, I would kind of look at this information and say, what's the need? And is it an offline component that we can just have staff redirect us to the information that we feel we want to assist residents in finding? Or if I look at this, wouldn't it be a great package as an orientation for the new council? And so why push a June timeline when we've got great reports that have come forward around a new database for business? We've got, I believe, staff through the summer that are door knocking with businesses. We're collecting more information. So I even wonder about if this is just more of an intention to say, this would be really great information to have. But for me, I see the audience as maybe the next council, rather than having staff redo or update information that might be more timely to have in the fall.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. The timelines mentioned in my motion were come up through discussions with staff and staff actually advising of this particular date. So that's where the date for the presentation came, and that's also to the rationale behind extending the timeline of the report The report is going to be far more detailed than what the presentation will be. And obviously, with the great detail that our staff do provide in their staff reports, it is very reasonable to at least give them 60 days to compile this in a report form. And that's where that came from through discussion with staff.
Okay, is that good? Councillor Kunkel? Okay, Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I am totally in agreement with Councillor Kunkel. I think that's a really great point. So collecting the data in some way and presenting it for the future council, I'm a huge yes looking at it in that way. And if, you know, by going with the deadlines that have been already discussed with staff, I will be in favor of Councillor Harvey's amendment, and we'll go from there. Yeah, thanks.
Anybody else want to speak to this item? Councillor McCann.
Sorry, could Council Natalie Harris just repeat? Is she supporting Councillor Harvey's amendment, or is she not supporting it?
I am supporting it.
Okay. I guess maybe I just need to comment on, you know, this information putting pushed off to next council. I really want to bite my tongue here, but I just feel that I can't. We've got businesses in our community listening to this conversation right now. And the answer that a couple of these council members put forth, that they want to delay getting this investigation, delay getting this information, delay. We've just come out of a pandemic, and we really need to get all hands on deck and help building our economy. And no one's perfect, right? I'm not perfect, right? And I'm not saying this plan is perfect, but if it connects City Hall and the business community together, and we work together by maybe finding a better way to build houses, finding a better way to find more employees to the City of Barrie, finding a better way to see this process. We've already had a senior staff member that says that she's actually excited to come to council on June 27th to present. We've had another senior staff member that says, yes, she will assist that senior staff member to help in this presentation. Gary Harvey has given some flexibility and
Point
said
of
that
order.
On what?
Are we going to just go through a whole list of and raise our voices and rehash? No one said they were excited to come and do a presentation, first of all. Okay, so I think we're probably close to taking the vote right now.
Okay, I'll let you finish your comments, Councillor McCann.
You're going to let me? Thank you. Anyways, and then Councillor Harvey having some flexibility and actually having 60 days to write this report in a thorough manner after we have questions with staff. I think Councillor Gary Harvey has come up with a perfect plan here, and I do support him. And so I just want to get that off my chest once again and say I do support this amendment, and this is good for everybody. Nobody loses here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McCann. Anybody else have any comments? Oh, Councillor or CAO Proust, I believe, wanted to say something.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Through you to members of committee, I just thought for some context, because there's a couple of items that are conflated here, which is housing starts and economic development. And I love the conversation around economic development, and Ms. Schlichter will dazzle you with all of the information and the work that her team has done over the last 2 years should this pass. The issue around housing starts, and I'm going to take council back to January, February of this year, because we did have this exact same conversation. And the point of my context is that for, well, the time I've been in this role, which is now 5 years, and probably many years before this, we have gone to the development community pretty much on a monthly basis because we have regular meetings with them. And we have said, can you give us your forecast for your housing starts over the next 30, 60, 90, 2 years? Because we're going to link our infrastructure investment to exactly that number. So now for 5 to 7 years, the developers, as good partners, have been giving us that information. And as members of council know, the number has changed slightly, but as we closed off this calendar year, we were overcommitted on development charges by in excess of $100 million. Now, what that means is we have spent $100 million that we were expecting to get from developers in the years preceding. Now, that didn't unfold, And the reason is because it was very difficult for even them, the people, the specialists in the business, to actually accurately forecast what they were going to do in the next year, never mind the next 90 days. So we took those numbers, and Mr. Miller will certainly attest to this. Each and every year we took those numbers and we cut them in half. And we said, we're a conservative organization, we are dealing with taxpayers' money, and we will take the most conservative approach. And in those 5 years, I don't believe there was 1 year where they actually even met that threshold. Now, when you meet with the development community, as Ms. Banfield and I did, certainly around this discussion back in January, February this year, we were assured by the development community that they were ready for business and things were complicated. And the answer as to why we didn't have the housing starts that we had been promised or committed to, there was 1,000 different reasons, from the Conservation Authority was difficult, to City Hall's processes were slow, to business was changing for them, or they were watching the market, 1,000 different answers. And I'm just going to tell Council that the answer tomorrow is probably going to be the exact answer that we got 5 months ago. And we're now conflating economic development and housing. And our crystal ball is their crystal ball because they know the business even better than we do. So Ms. Banfield can go back and she can look at the amount of permits that are coming in and the expectations and the commitments, but the reality is that number will only be as good as our partners at the end of the phone line when we talk to them. So the purpose of me raising this issue for members of council is you can't take those numbers to the bank because we have taken those numbers to the bank. And that resulted in us being over-committed on development charges by over $100 million. So I would just ask council to exercise caution. Should they want this information, again, happy to provide it. The team will certainly do as requested. But a grain of salt, I think, needs to go with whatever information we're able to glean from you, from the development community. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Prowse. Councillor McCann.
And thank you, CEO Prowse. I think that's put well eloquently, and actually, this is what we're trying to create some momentum here. But I do have a question. Like, do we have a crystal ball?
Councillor McCann, I think that was a rhetorical
CEO
question,
Prowse.
so I'll pass on the response. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So the motion from Councillor Harvey is on the floor. If you have a presentation and get the information in 60 days, there may be more amendments coming, but that's the current amendment. So all in favor? It's carried. Other amendments. Councillor Thompson, did you have an amendment? Councillor Rietma? Okay. Any other comments or questions on this item? And I will call the vote. All in favor? It is carried. Oh, against? It is carried. Final item on the agenda is the Police Services Board Panhandling and Criminal Activity. This was held by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. So I want to introduce a completely different motion. And it reads as followed. That the Barrie Police Service be requested to present and implement a framework to City Council outlining how they are going to carry out their legislative responsibilities, meeting objectives of the provincially legislated City of Barrie Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and continue collaboration efforts with all service partners to support these experience mental health crisis, addiction, and homelessness. 2, that as part of their 2023 budget, the Barrie Police Service Board present Council with a budget inclusive of a full complement of members required to support the Community and Safety and Wellbeing Plan and implementation of the Barrie Police Strategic Plan. 3, that correspondence be sent to the Ontario Provincial Police requesting them to continue their efforts to address the safety of the Highway 400 ramps. 4, that correspondence be sent to the provincial government and local MPPs requesting them to make increased investment in resource and social services agencies and continue the collaboration on the improvement works of improving discharge plan from provincial institutes such as hospitals, correctional institutes, and mental health facilities a priority. 5, that correspondence be sent to the federal and provincial government requesting them to make significant investments in housing for low-income individuals and families to address the current housing and homelessness crisis. and I can speak to this.
Is there any chance you can distribute that? Do you have it on your computer?
Oh, sorry.
Email it? Okay, we're going to.
I apologize.
Email it. Okay, thank you. And you can speak to it now.
Actually, Deputy Mayor Ward, if you don't mind, I would let Councillor Aylwin speak, and then I can speak after, or would you like me to speak to it?
You can speak to your motion,
Okay.
and then, yeah.
So, thanks. So, look, the gallery's full, and in no way, shape, or form do I want to criminalize people who are suffering homelessness and poverty. And it's, you know, there is a part, and I know Councillor Aylwin had a little bit of an issue with the correspondence to the Ontario Provincial Police, and in no way am I looking to criminalize the people who are on the ramps or anything, but for the safety of everybody, the encampments on the ramps can create a hazard to drivers and the people who are using them. Like, with this motion, I spoke to Councillor Jim Harris, Councillor Morales, Councillor Kungle, one of our, largest service providers in Sarapetto from the Busby, and I tried, and now, in no way, shape, or form did this go far enough for Ms. Petal. So I don't want to claim anything that, but I try to find a compromise, and I just think that we've got to take a full approach, and we've got to request the other levels of government to truly step in, because in a couple weeks we are going to be in a world of problems when the housing or the hotel method closes, and so I'm looking for a full approach from all levels of government, and like I said, in no way do I want anybody to think that I'm criminalizing the people who are suffering homelessness.
Okay, Councillor Aylwin and Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. And thank you, Councillor Thompson, for the amendment. I will speak to it specifically. I think paragraphs 1 to 3, which are calling on the police to take action on these issues, I still have some questions and some concerns about. But certainly paragraph 4 and 5 around better services for people, I'm supportive of. But I want to talk generally about this issue and this motion and what this means for our city. And I've been thinking a lot about what it means to love Barrie. And I've been thinking about that question pretty much my whole life growing up here. And to be honest, I struggled to love Barrie. And I actually couldn't wait to leave when I was growing up here. And leaving your hometown for maybe a more diverse or accepting community, I think, is a queer person's rite of passage. But I'm here now, and Barrie is my home. And I do love this city. But what does that actually mean? And for me, it means I believe in what this city can become. I think we can become a city where everybody can live a life of dignity and safety. But sadly, that's not a reality yet in Barrie. We have been facing a crushing housing and homelessness crisis for years now. Hundreds of people in our community, our neighbors, these are our neighbors, our family and our friends, have been denied their basic human right to housing, to shelter, a basic human need. And thousands of people in our community are they're legislated into poverty through programs like Ontario Works and the Ontario Disability Support Payments Program. They're struggling to make ends meet day after day after day on those programs. And we've lost hundreds of members of our community to the toxic drug poisoning crisis, which is brought on by the failed war on drugs that this motion is looking to continue. And it's also brought on by a lack of harm reduction support.
Can you just clarify, you're talking about the motion that Councillor Thompson put on?
The main motion, as not amended yet, and I believe this motion also speaks to the issues of homelessness.
Yeah,
and
just make
drug
clear,
use.
there's only one item on the floor, and that's one motion on the floor, and that's Councillor Thompson's. Just clarify that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've lost hundreds of members of our community to that toxic drug poisoning crisis. And I wonder about how their families and their friends and community feel when they hear someone say, I love Barrie. Because I imagine it's hard to feel love for a city when it doesn't feel like the city loves you back. But I found another new reason to love Barrie these past few days. I saw our community rally together to say no to criminalizing people who need real support and real solutions. And there's been an outpouring of love and support for people, including in the chambers tonight, to support our neighbors. So I strongly believe that we do need to have an actual policy discussion about poverty and homelessness in Barrie and how we can best support people. But this motion, original motion, and frankly this amendment that seeks to criminalize people who are experiencing homelessness and poverty, it's not that. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of poverty and homelessness and the causes of crime. It also serves to stigmatize people in our community who need support, and it pits us against our neighbors. Criminalizing poverty doesn't solve poverty, and it makes things worse, trapping people in a cycle of poverty and criminalization that can disproportionately harm Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color. We can't arrest our way out of these systemic problems, and the police will tell you that. Social service agencies will tell you that. And most importantly, people who are living in poverty and experiencing homelessness or living in shelters will tell you that. So this motion must be defeated, and I'm glad that there's an amendment to replace it entirely. But I think we need to think long and hard about paragraphs 1 to 3, calling on the Barrie Police to take the lead on supporting people experiencing mental health crisis, addiction, and homelessness. That approach is the approach we've been taking. When we don't address the root causes of these issues, it falls back on the police, and it doesn't help anyone involved. It perpetuates the problem, and it harms people. So I have an additional amendment, and I'm looking to the city clerk and the acting mayor about whether to introduce that now, or if you'd like to vote on Councillor Thompson's amendment first.
Councillor Thompson didn't put an amendment on the floor. He put on a motion, so there are no amendments on the floor currently. It was the motion he put on was a replacement motion. It's not an amendment to Councillor McCann's.
Okay, so then I'll move an amendment to replace paragraphs 1 to 3 of Councillor Thompson's motion. So paragraphs 1 to 3, just let me pull that up. So those are requests to paragraphs 1 and 2 being to the Barrie Police, looking at a full complement of members to address these issues of mental health crisis, addiction, and homelessness, and then the OPP requesting them to continue their efforts on the Highway 400 ramps. I think those 3 paragraphs need to be replaced, and I have here an amendment that I will move. So it's to replace paragraphs 1 to 3 with the following. Number 1, that correspondence be sent to local MPPs, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, and the Premier in support of immediately raising Ontario Works, OW, and Ontario Disability Support, ODSP, social assistance rates above the poverty line. And to that staff investigate the feasibility of a pilot program to retain outreach workers and or social workers to assist people experiencing homelessness and living in poverty in the downtown area to connect to services and to act as a resource for downtown residents and businesses and report back to General Committee. So these are 2 general items that I think could make a difference in people's lives if the provincial government listens. We are in an election right now, and I think now is a really good time for us to advocate on these issues. There are thousands of people in our community on Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support payments living in poverty. These are people on social assistance living in poverty. Let that sink in. These are people who are supposed to be getting support, and they're being trapped in poverty. I had the opportunity to walk around and visit some of the encampments around our city with Acting Mayor Ward and some members of the Barrie Police. And I can tell you that pretty much every person we talked to who were living in those encampments were either on Ontario Works or on ODSP or had been on it, and then because of their precarious living situation, were not on it anymore. And that tells me that our programs are failing. When people on social assistance are being forced to go and live in a tent in city parks or wherever, that's a sign of a failing social assistance program. So I'm hoping that we can have a strong, united voice as this council and say no to the criminalization of poverty and yes to real support and compassion for people who may be struggling in our community. And that's what this amendment accomplishes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Owen. I just want to be clear because it took me a second to find it. It's exactly the same wording as the one that was sent out to us earlier, that we received earlier today, the wording?
From the clerk?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I sent it to the clerk earlier.
Yeah, it's the same wording. Okay, I just want to make sure it hadn't changed. Councillor Harvey, I guess that's an amendment on now. We'll start a list again, but you are the next person.
Yeah, no, thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Due to the original motion, including information on the 2023 police budget, I do have to declare that in order to meet my legislative requirements under Section 17 Sub 3 of the Police Services Act, I will not participate or take place in this discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Madam Clerk, has that been Councillor Harvey's potential conflict been recorded?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Ward, it has.
Quick point of order, Acting Mayor Ward. I just talked to one of my colleagues. I also can't find it from earlier. It was alluded that it was. Could we just send it out again, Councillor Owens? Thanks.
Oh, maybe everybody didn't get it.
Yeah. Maybe it's, yeah.
Okay.
I sent it.
Okay, I think Councillor Owen just sent it out, so we should have it now, as you can hear. Okay, so we have it. Anybody want to speak on the amendment? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. So I appreciate the amendment. I don't want anybody to think I'm criminalizing. So this is legislative. The Barrie Police are part of the community and safety well-being, and they have to be part of it through legislation. So if there was correspondence to remove the community safety and well-being plan and remove the Barrie Police, I would understand. But this is already something that's legislated that they have to participate in. And like I said, with the correspondence with the Ontario Provincial Police, it's about the safety of everybody, and it's not about the criminalization. And to be honest, number two of hiring and the investigating the feasibility of hiring in a pilot project, truth be told, I think we've been down that road already, and it didn't really work. So I would have accepted number one as a friendly, but I know that you're not in support of 1 to 3, which I respect. So I won't be supporting the amendment as much as I would love to see number 1 be added, because I agree with that.
Can I ask Councillor Elwin, do you want to divide them and introduce them separately?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll vote on 1 and 2 of the amendments separately. Councillor, sorry, good.
Point of clarity, though. So Councillor Aylwin's amendment was actually to move 1 and 3.
1 to 3, yeah.
So how about one part of the amendment is to remove paragraphs 1 to 3, and then second part is to send the correspondence regarding OW and ODSP. Third part is the pilot program.
So the amendment is now to remove 1 to 3. So Councillor Thompson, do you have anything else to say on that one? Do you have anything else you want to say on the amendment just to remove 1 to 3? I think you maybe you've spoken on it.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Morales.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. I'm actually opposite to Councillor Thompson. I'm supportive of number 2. I'm not supportive of number 1. A, I just don't like the letter writing. B, I don't know enough about the issue. I'm a city councillor. I'm not in the social services. I'm not an MPP. So not to say that I'm saying that I'm against it, but I'm supportive of number 2 actually. And thanks for dividing it because I'm supportive of the highway ramp thing. I understand the line that it blurs with the criminalization, but the issue with the highway ramps is it's a safety issue. I'm not trying to be dramatic about it being a safety issue. I remember presentations that staff present to us. We know what intersections are the highest collision. Fairview is a big one, and some of the highway ramps. And when you've got people, and let's just be honest, People check their phones, people check their radios, whatever. And I've been in close calls with this situation. Anybody, people don't necessarily look at the stoplight. People don't necessarily look at the car in front of them. If they see that the light is green, you assume the vehicle in front of you is going to start moving, so you take your foot off the brake. And then sometimes you realize that the car in front didn't. And in being in situations where the reason maybe they didn't step off the gas, especially with giant truck and SUVs these days, is because they were handing somebody a water bottle or food or something. I'm not being dramatic. It happens already. So I do like the compassionate language, Councillor Thompson, that yours has for the highway ramp. I will be not supportive of this first one, but I will be supportive of your subsequent ones, Councillor Owen.
Okay, we have quite a list now. Councillor Rietma.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to support both of Councillor Aylwin's amendments. That is number 1 and number 2, and I also want to support all 5 of Councillor Thompson's, because I think that the more we send out, the better off we are likely to have some success. And I think, right now we're having a provincial election. I think it's really high time that we put some push on them to really accomplish something, because one thing that really worries me is the end of the month, the whole hotel program ends, and I don't think anybody's got any good ideas as to what to do after that. And I think that's a tsunami that's going to hit us, and the people that, and it always does, the people that are the most vulnerable, that can't fend for themselves, and they need the assistance. So I'm going to support what Councillor Aylwin has put forward, but I'm also going to support all of Councillor Thompson's, simply because they're all practical and suitable things that we can be asking and should be done. But I think more than anything, we need low-cost housing for these people, because if you can put a roof over their head, at least you've got a little bit of dignity that you can give them, and they can then, hopefully we can reach them to give them a hand to the extent that they want to have help. So I'm going to support everything. Thanks.
Councillor Jim Harris, and I know the only item on the floor right now is to eliminate 1 to 3, but I'll give people a bit of leeway so we don't have to go around 5 times. Okay.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Yeah, and on the eliminated 1 to 3, and maybe just offer a different take on this. And I understand and appreciate, criminalizing people because of their situation of poverty, and that's not the outcome we want. And just to be clear, and I understand, and having helped Councillor Thompson with the wording, that what he's seeking is not to do that. He's seeking to get clarity on the legislative responsibility police have with the community safety and well-being plans, which are provincially mandated. And I think what this could do for us, and even Councillor Aylwin, to what your goal is, to understand really what's the role of police, what should it be, what is it? And I think when I saw this, as somebody who works closely in human services and has worked with police and human services, the Human Service Justice Coordination Committee, there's a lot of efforts that bring human services and policing together because they often intersect in the real world. So I think what this can do for us by keeping 1 to 3 in, especially 1 and 2, it actually gives us a cost of what police are doing in the community safety and well-being plan, which is not about criminalizing and charging and convicting people. So ideally, we could see where is that money being spent, and should it be reallocated to other things like what you're suggesting. But until we have that fully costed, vetted, and explained, we don't really know. So from my perspective, I'd like to see it in so we could really see what they're doing in that domain. And there's a lot of different things that we do in this, in our response to, take mental illness, for example. There's no 24/7 response to the mental health system, so the police do it. Legislation is written so that police will be there to help people when they need to be brought to hospital. So they play an integral role. So I'd like to see this stay because I think it gives a lot of information. Information is power, to really understand the details and the costs and the role and where the investments could be altered to put towards human services. So with that perspective and lens, I would like to think hopefully we could keep this in to get the information to really drill down on where police fit into this equation and where they maybe want to move out of. And even many years ago when I was involved in crisis intervention team training and coast development, I mean, the police chiefs themselves had a statement, and they were for more services for mental illness and Ministry of Health because they were doing things that they knew they weren't supposed to do and weren't funded or trained to do. So police leaders know this is not their area of expertise. So I'd like to see where we really can get the information to really make a sensible and really accurate determination of where the dollars go, but they can give us that. So I would like to keep it in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Barrie Ward. I think I will express some similar interests, and so I'm struggling with process because I will be voting no then around supporting these two, and I do want to support them. I'd love to see a consideration for, rather than removing 1 to 3, an adding of 6 and 7 to the current 5, and then we could vote individually on each one. I'm not sure if that supports a better process, but would really love to see this go forward, Councillor Aylwin, and I was wondering if it's not too late to maybe just streamline that so we've got the option to look at each of the 7 now potential aspects or paragraphs of a motion.
If I can just answer, I think that right now we only have removing 1 to 3 on the floor. I think Councillor was indicated he'll introduce them as separate items. If this is passed or defeated, it's going to introduce these 2 other items separately, correct? Yes.
Okay, thank you. So unfortunately, I will be then through process voting no, but my interest is to actually consider all 7. So I'll wait for that process then to happen after.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kungle. Councillor McCann?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. This has been a great moment in time for me. It really has. I tell you that I am not an expert when it comes to social services. I'm not. But I've got a great big heart for everybody in our community. And that's why I'm going to maybe just say a little more than I usually do. Not to sell you, not to convince you. I just want to tell you. You know, homelessness, drugs, prostitution, mental illness, we need to find the root cause. I'm not debating that. You know, we need to care, treat, integrate our marginalized society back into society when needed, when possible. You know, I think that Councillor Aylwin, I think that we all agree that this really needs to be a top priority for the federal government, for the provincial government, because we know that homelessness, drugs, prostitution, and mental illness has no borders. They don't care what municipality they're in. They're going to go where they feel the safest, right? And they're going to go where they feel the most welcomed, right? And this really needs to be addressed through the federal and provincial governments. And I think Councillor Thompson's motion addresses that. I think Councillor Aylwin's amendment addresses that. And I'm completely agreeing, right? So why am I agreeing when maybe I had maybe a little more progressive item discussion put forward tonight? You know, what was my purpose of my discussion? Well, it was 2 things. It was to bring this. I wanted to hear from all aspects of our society. I wanted to start talking about Barrie's downtown. I've been a councillor for 8 years, and I'm real sick and tired of hearing that we've got a horrible downtown, and I want to do something about it. So I had a plan, and that's why I'm here. So that was number 1. Number 2, I wanted to manage this moment. Like, we can sit here and we can all say that I'm the bad guy, and I'm taking that on. Sure, I'm the bad guy. But I feel like I'm doing what's right for the whole city, the whole community, right? And we have many, many people who fear that it's not safe downtown and not welcoming. And I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to change that narrative. So am I going to be supporting a new motion that came on board And am I going to be supporting this amendment? You better believe I am, because I agree with both of them. I agree that this is the future. The plan that I had was to take action now. At least ask the questions. Can we take action now? Can we have a plan that works this summer? Now, thank you. I really appreciate that. I may be bold, but I'm not oblivious that my item of discussion is not going to pass tonight. So I'm going to withdraw my item of discussion, and I'm going to do what's best for our community. And I say, let's not stop talking about this, and let's get a solution. And so I'm supportive of Councillor Thompson's new motion, and I'm supportive of Councillor Aylwin's, both of them. I actually think they're great, right? But the only question I ask both of them is, what will we see in the summer of 2022? That is the question that still needs to be addressed, but not tonight. I want to sit and talk to anybody that will listen to me how we can make this plan better. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, right now we have Councillor Elwin's, oh, sorry, Councillor Elwin, did you have your hand up? Oh, Councillor Natalie Harris, sorry.
No worries. I just wanted to mention that I'm in favor of Councillor Aylwin's amendments, and I am in favor of all but number 3 of Councillor Thompson's. I still find it's a bit too vague as to what we would be aiming to address and how we would be addressing any of the safety issues surrounding that. So that would be the only one that I wouldn't be in favor of. So, and I will save all of my other comments for another night.
Okay, just a reminder, anybody that wants to remove number 3 can feel free to introduce an amendment after. The amendment on the floor now is to eliminate 1 to 3. So, seeing no other comments, I'll call the vote. All in favor of eliminating 1 to 3 of Councillor Thompson's motion? Okay. It is defeated. Councillor Elwin, did you want to put another motion on?
Yes, I will move to add paragraph, I guess I'll do these separately. Paragraph, what will that be, 6? That correspondence be sent to local MPPs, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, and the Premier in support of immediately raising Ontario Works and ODSP social assistance rates above the poverty line.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments on this? I know we've already had a general discussion. See none. All in favor? Oh, sorry, was there a comment? Okay, no, we'll move one at a time. So 6, all in favor? Against? You're against? Okay. It's passed. It's carried. Councillor Elwin?
And paragraph 7, that staff investigate the feasibility of a pilot program to retain outreach workers and our social workers to assist people experiencing homelessness and living in poverty in the downtown area, to connect to services and to act as a resource for downtown residents and businesses, and report back to General Committee.
Okay, you didn't put a time frame. We're kind of against the clock here, I know. Did you have an idea?
Well, I'll leave that up to staff, if whatever they can accomplish. I know they're stretched for resources, so.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments or questions on this matter? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I'll be supportive of this one. I had the opportunity to attend one of the Ontario BI conferences, Councillor Elwin, last year, where a specific municipality, I'm trying to remember if it was Sudbury, Peterborough, had huge success with something like this. Now, that was the BIA doing it. Am I saying this should be the BIA? Absolutely not. Might be the city, might be the BIA, might be some sort of Connected Core 2.0 version, might be some of our stakeholders in the crowd or at home. I don't have the answer. This looks to investigate it. That's great. And I just wanted to provide the feedback that the chairs and the EDs of specific BIs in Ontario, they've made it work. Maybe we need to find a Barrie model on how to implement that, but it worked, and especially telling is that it worked being run by a business association, if you will. So that's, I think that goes to show the fact that business prosperity and social justice and fairness that definitely go hand in hand. So I'll be supportive of this one as well. And for staff that maybe want the feedback on how to connect, I'm happy to find old emails and see if I can find those people that mentioned it.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Owen?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I just want to
Yep.
I just want to thank members of General Committee for their interest in this topic, and Councillor McCann for withdrawing your motion. And I do want to talk about, I think, the downtown, because that's the amendment on the floor right now, about the downtown specifically. There is a perception that downtown Barrie is unsafe, but it's a perception. And the reality is that City of Barrie is one of the safest cities in the entire country, and the crime rates in the downtown are even with the rest of the city. So there isn't a higher level of crime in the downtown, and we need to stop this anti-marketing campaign of our downtown. We need to tell the good stories. I live right on Dunlop Street, and every single day walk out my door and interact with my neighbors who run the coffee shop down the street, or people hanging out having coffee in the square, or someone asking for a toonie across the street. And these are my neighbors, and they're human beings deserving of dignity and understanding and respect and real support. And I just hope that we can take this lesson of this evening and not try to make political hay or score political points on the backs of some of the most vulnerable people in our community, because it hurts people, it stigmatizes people. So we need to learn that lesson and move forward on real solutions, and I'm thankful that General Committee has taken that opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Barrie Ward. On the 7th paragraph that's been tabled, I just wanted to echo, I think it's great to explore this and keep that conversation going, and perhaps outreach to Aurelia might be valuable. I believe the Aurelia Library hired a social worker. And so regardless of how it's structured, and I think Councillor Morales commented on a business approach to this, it would be great to see how we are part of a network of making effective referrals and or engagement of individuals to support connecting them to resources. So I'm supportive of that, and I'm glad to see that both are being considered tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Harris.
And thank you, Acting Mayor Ward, and thank you, Councillor Aylwin, for this amendment. It made me think, and I know obviously, and Councillor Morales mentioned the BIA, and I've been around for a while, and Midland did this many years ago. Simple Outreach Services provided the service, funded through the county through federal homeless dollars, and some who are in the audience might, who work in that sector, probably remember that as well. So my question would be, and through you, Acting Mayor Ward, to Councillor Aylwin, I like this. What I'm wondering about is just adding, staff are going to investigate the feasibility of a pilot program. I was thinking about also conducting a review of currently provincially and federally funded outreach workers that are currently allocated to Barrie. And I think, and I see some friendly faces smiling in the crowd who have done some significant work in prior years to try to coordinate outreach efforts. I'll say, I see Sarah nodding. So I'm just trying to, we're better when we work together, right? So there are, and, without playing too much of my hand, I know there's several, and certainly the pandemic has really impacted outreach efforts, although outreach needs have certainly grown and things have changed. But with funding that's currently allocated to the provincial Ministry of Health for both mental health issues and for addiction issues, there may be some really important connections that could be drawn to currently funded outreach positions that this could really work with. And I know, and I've lost track of it, I haven't been involved in that sector for a little bit, but where the county funding has been and where our partners like Busby and Youth Haven, I don't know where their funding is for outreach. So there certainly be a synergy to work together. And maybe a final comment, having that connection to a formal provider provides some real advantage. So maybe in that review that staff do, it might be that maybe that is not BIA staff, it's not a City of Barrie staff, it's a staff from one of the teams that's already doing this work to really create those connections and synergies and the collaboration. So I don't know if I added anything to a friendly or not, but maybe the friendly would be to if I can, is consult with the Barrie chapter members of the Simcoe Alliance on Homelessness to review current outreach services and collaborate appropriately. Is that?
Councillor Owen?
Thank you.
Okay. So I take it the friendly is to add that these staff members have a pilot program to retain outreach workers or social workers and consult with existing outreach work?
Yeah, consult with the Simcoe County Alliance to End Homelessness Barrie chapter on present outreach funded positions.
Ms. Cook, do you have that? Okay. Yes, okay. Any other comments or questions? I have one for Councillor Elwin, and it bothers me that it says poverty in the downtown area, because when I was with you last week on this tour of encampments, there was one obviously in Sunnydale Park, and I would never consider myself a downtown councillor, so I'm worried that that's too restrictive by using those words. They're going to say, well, you're not living you're not in the downtown area, so would you want to drop I know most of the problem, if it's a problem, but the situation is downtown, but I just worry that language is going to prevent them from going to places like Sunnydale Park.
Absolutely. It's citywide.
Okay, so you're willing to drop the downtown?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the downtown's been dropped. Any other comments or questions? So this is to add paragraph 7 now, Councillor Owen, paragraph 2. Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor McCann.
Yeah, maybe ask we could have a separate report for next week.
At the end of the report, yes. We'll
Yeah,
ask for
and I just want to make it very clear that we still have a serious issue with open drug use downtown Barrie, and there's a lot of issues that we still need to address. I think it was I think we moved a mountain tonight, and hopefully that has some real good end results in our downtown. But I'm still not clear on how the summer of 2022 anything's going to look different than the previous summer or the previous month. So I guess I'll ask for a separate report when time is due, and I'd like to continue this conversation next week and see if we can't still add some urgency to get something done, whether it's a hybrid of Council Aylwin's, whether it's a hybrid of Council Thompson's, or hopefully somebody in the crowd has a great idea that they could bring forward. I definitely know my phone is always open to hear constructive criticism, but also hopefully great ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McCann. So item 7, paragraph 2 of Councillor Elwin's amendment. All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. So the final is the motion as amended amended twice. Is there any other amendments? Councillor Elwin?
I just want to quickly highlight the importance of the asks we're making this evening to federal and provincial government around Councillor Thompson's motion around significant investments in housing for low-income individuals and families to address the current housing and homelessness crisis, and then the ask around raising OW and ODSP rates above the poverty line. Those are key in fighting poverty in our community, and we cannot do it alone as a city. We don't have the legislative power, we don't have the financial power or the financial tools to address these issues on the scale that they're on. So we're looking at our local MPPs, we're looking at our local MPs to be advocates for our community, because people need support, and residents are asking for their community to be cared for. So I want them to listen to their city council tonight with this united voice that we have and take some real action on these issues.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rietma?
I just wanted to echo what Councillor Elwin was saying and also answer the question that Councillor McCann was asking when he says, what's going to be different this summer? And I'm going to suggest that if the province raises OW and ODSP immediately, we will see a difference this summer.
Okay, any other comments or questions before we call the vote on the motion amended twice? No other amendments? No other comments? No, sorry, you can't. Because the rules of procedure don't allow questions from the audience, sorry. You can make deputations if you want next meeting, but you cannot speak at the council. Sorry, you have to wait till you make it. Okay.
I think they have a purpose. I've thought of over 100 ideas. Don't do drugs.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask people to be quiet in the gallery. It's, we've got a meeting. Sorry. Okay. It's okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. Councillor Harris, sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I just wanted to clarify. So we have the two that are added. So we have number 6, number 7.
Yep.
Are we voting on what exactly now? Because I do want to get to the point where I can put an amendment forward to remove number 3, which is
This would be the
about-
time to do it if you're going to do it.
Okay, so I would like to move an amendment to remove number 3. I feel like maybe Councillor Thompson, if we can work over the week to edit it a bit and make it a bit more clear as to what it is you're looking for. I feel it's just still a bit too vague and risking possible charges to people that are panhandling. So that would be my one request.
Could I ask Councillor Thompson to explain item 3 first? And then if you want to introduce the amendment, you can. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. So there's been a little bit of an issue with the ramps of the 400, and speaking with community members and officers and stuff, that it creates a hazard, and that's what I'm looking for, is just the safety. There's not a person that's in the gallery that thinks it's humane to live on an off-ramp. So, like, this isn't what I'm looking at. I'm not criminalizing it, or it's the safety of everybody. For example, an activity as playing Frisbee, to entertain themselves. If the Frisbee was to fly onto the highway, it could create a significant accident. It could end up putting cars into the medians where these people are. So it has nothing to do with the criminalization, and it has to be this vague, as it's against the legislation to direct police. So I'm not looking for, to go in and remove everything, but, we have to look at the safety of everybody. And that's all this number 3 is. It's being very vague because technically it has to be vague. So.
Can I just ask, this isn't asking for, there's two issues of the ramps. One is the people that are asking for money, and the second is people that are living on the ramps. Is this addressing either or both, or one or the other?
So
when I say living on the ramps, they're actually living at the side of the ramps.
Yeah. So Deputy Mayor Ward, it's a little bit of both. To Councilor Morales' point and stuff, sometimes it can create hazards, right? It's just the highway, is no place that people, like, if you're on the highway and you run out of gas and the OPP drive by, they pick you up and take you off the highway. So because it is a hazard, it's dangerous. And that's all I'm looking at. I don't want them to go in, and I don't want them to remove them, and I don't want charges, and the people at the end of the ramps, I don't want to waste resources on that stuff. They're going to do what they're going to do, but I just want them to maintain the safety of the Highway 400 ramps. Whatever that, may be, is up to the Ontario Provincial Police, as we're not allowed to direct police force.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Natalie Harris?
Thank you. And I see what you're saying, Councillor Thompson, but they already do patrol the ramps. And I know OPP and Barrie Police do. And when there are, and I've spoken to Barrie Police about this, when there are complaints with respect to safety concerns, that is definitely a priority for them to attend. For panhandling, that is a lower priority. And even to go out and have a discussion regarding that, they just aren't staffed to be able to do that. So I just kind of see it as a bit uncomfortable still because it is vague. I see what you're saying. I'm still putting the amendment on the floor to remove that part. I could still discuss it with you further. And that's where I am. I hear what you're saying, but this is what they already do. And I feel like it's still, in my opinion, a bit too vague on what we're asking for them to do. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harris. Other comments or questions? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I won't be supportive of the amendment for the following reasons. I don't think we should be uncomfortable about ensuring safety. This is real. A lot of people sometimes use wild herrings. They muddy the waters with fake non-issues about won't anyone think of the children, etc. This is a real issue. So again, for example, I was willing to, I did support the amendment about looking into kind of social service outreach, because I get it. It's not just about brushing it out of view so you don't feel uncomfortable, but the highway ramps is just not the place to do it. You know, I personally would support a lemonade stand, but I'm sure if there was a lemonade stand in a fire route at a condo complex, pretty sure the fire chief's probably going to send someone out, no matter how good the lemonade stand is. So doesn't mean that the fire chief or Barrie Fire doesn't like lemonade stands. So I'm using that example to say that this is about safety. And if it makes us feel uncomfortable, but the other way, so be it, because this is a real practical issue. Councillor Thompson, I appreciate the way you worded it, because you know, it's if we don't have any issue with writing a letter to other levels of government about them improving their services, we shouldn't have any trouble writing a letter to a stakeholder about doing the job they should be doing. So it doesn't actually, it's not out of bounds, it's not vague enough, it's literally reiterating that, which you know, there's other aspects of this motion that are similar to that. So again, to reiterate, it's not about getting the issue out of hand. It's not about pretending it doesn't exist. It's about the highway ramps. It's just a really bad place, both for people in cars and for people that are, you know, accepting drinks or food, etc.
Councillor Riedma.
I certainly understand the dangers of the highway ramps, and I was wondering if I could have Councillor Natalie Harris and Councillor Thompson get together in the next week and work out the wording for number 3 that is comfortable for both of them. And if we could just, I don't mean to kick this down the road, but we could just defer item 3 and let the two of them work it out and come back to us next Monday. Is that a reasonable suggestion?
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, sorry, to Councillor Reedman. Councillor Reedman, I appreciate the effort and stuff. The only problem is there's no other wording that I can think of. I've worked on this with numerous stakeholders and stuff, and like, you can remove everything. It's the safety of the Highway 400 ramps. That's the only thing I'm looking to achieve. And, you know, hopefully that, you know, everybody with our service providers and not police, where the people who are offering services can assist in you know, helping these people off the ramps. Like, there's no way that it's humane to be on the ramp. For a lot of different reasons, and that is my concern. It's the safety of them as much as it's motorists and everybody else. So I do appreciate your efforts, and, you know, the collaboration of a lot of people around this table have actually got somewhere with substance. So I do appreciate your effort, but I can't think of anything in the wording that's going to change this. And I know some people are a little bit uncomfortable with it, but it's not in any way, shape, or form to criminalize the people there. It's for everybody's safety.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Acting Mayor. I guess to me, it just seems that between yourself and Councillor Natalie Harris that there might be some wordsmithing that might work, because one of the things that item 3 is doing is saying it's requesting the OPP to continue their efforts. Well, is there some indication that they're not going to continue their effort? Or are they changing their efforts? Because if we just say to them, well, just keep on doing what you're doing, well, do we really even need to say that? So I'm just trying to find a way to kind of wordsmith it so I agree with you, we can't direct the police, but at the same time, I think maybe the wording could be improved.
Councillor Thompson?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, and like I said, I do appreciate the efforts around the table tonight, and I guess we could leave it as it is, and there's a week, at City Council that an amendment or something can be moved, but yeah, I just, I won't take the approach that the word continuous, because, yeah, I'm writing correspondence for them to continue their efforts as it was discussed, about the people out on the ramps and stuff. So I was kind of highlighting the efforts that are already being taken, and, all I can recommend is if people reach out to Sarah, who's right across the street, and doing great work and trying to assist them not to be on the on-ramps and off-ramps. So
I'll leave it at that. I think that Councillor Natalie Harris and Councillor Thompson know how to reach each other this week, and maybe we can have something work out between the two of them in the coming week.
Just for clarification, Councillor Harris, your amendment is still on the floor?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. Councillor Thompson's way too humble. I'm not, so I'm going to give him a little praise. He has spent hours on this the last week, consulting with many people. I don't know if Councillor Reitmar heard this, but it was very specifically said by Councillor Thompson when asked, could you arrive at a different edition? The answer was no. He was just too polite to say it directly. The reality is he spent many hours on this. He didn't just do this at 4 p.m. today. And if you support it, vote for it. If you don't. But if you're trying to find this populist middle where you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of the crowd right now, so you feel like you need to vote against it, even though you kind of like it, the reality is assume that you're not going to see a different iteration, because Councillor Thompson has done a lot of the work with various stakeholders on this. If for some reason there is a different iteration, that's a pleasant surprise, but the reality is, voting against this because possibly you're hoping that something different comes out of it is just muddying the waters on this one amendment. And again, Councillor Thompson, you're way too humble, but I really appreciate the fact that you brought together people who would have supported the original motion on the agenda, word by word, and loved it. And you also talked to people who made T-shirts tonight and despised it. And we've arrived at a happy solution. Again, if for some reason it changes, that's great, but I know that you've put in the work here, and I'm not going to muddy the waters on this amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morales. No other comments? I just wanted to say, I worry about this wording. I know what you're aiming at, Councillor Thompson, but I also know the Ministry of Transportation and the OPP are looking at perhaps removing the camps alongside the 400, and my worry is they're going to see this wording as justification to do it. I don't think that's your intention, but I worry that if they see a motion from this council to address the safety concerns, they'll say, yes, the City of Barrie also supports us cleaning up those camps, which I'd love to see the camps disappear, but not for the reason that there's a problem with them. There's a problem because it's a symbol that those people have no place to go. But my worry is that those people are going to be, the MTO and the OPP are going to remove those people from the camps, and they're all going to come 10 feet into the City of Barrie, and it'll be the same problem, but we haven't accomplished anything. And that's my worry. With the way this is worded now, it may be seen by them as justification to act on those encampments that are alongside the highway now. Councillor Thompson, you want to?
You know what, Deputy Mayor Ward, and through you and to you, I guess, I appreciate that, and I think we're reading too much into this. Like, at the end of the day, we can't, we're suggesting they continue doing their efforts, but they're going to do what they're going to do, and that's the sad thing, but what we need to do is support our service providers and have them go and outreach so that there's no need for the OPP to attend the encampments. Because, like I've said numerous times, there's not a person in here that says living on an on-ramp or off-ramp is humane. You know, it's just not. It's loud. It's dangerous. There's cars doing 140, you know, somebody's crossing the street or walking down the shoulder. Like, I can't see how anybody would want that to continue. So I understand people's concerns because but at the end of the day, we don't direct police, and they're going to continue their efforts as they are already. They do stop on the ramps. I'm hoping that all this discussion today helps our city and our service providers, that there's no need for the OPP, that we find something for these people not to be there. So, and I understand, Deputy Mayor Ward, and I appreciate, like I said, all the efforts around this table, but I just think that for the safety of everybody, I think this is something that has to be there.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? I guess we've had a good discussion on it. I'll call the vote on the amendment, which is, Councillor Constable, are you asking to speak or are you voting?
I've been asking to speak. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. So I won't belabor it, but I mean, I'm a little conflicted because some of the situations of safety concerns are bordering on Ward 3. I have had several residents calling with a very compassionate approach, but with safety concern. I have seen and spoken with Barrie Police, who worked with shelter providers to proactively do outreach and support individuals to encourage them to seek another location that is safer, because I believe everyone in that conversation clearly identified what we don't want to see is perhaps an approach that could happen through an OPP presence that might be a bit different around how individuals are connected to services or supported in a timely way to look at other options. So, I mean, I struggle with it. I understand Councillor Thompson's intention, so I'm supporting it. I'm hoping we're going to have further dialogue. Part of me, you know, is more concerned about how do we just prioritize and support a process where we really look to do what it is within our ability to support these individuals to migrate from those unsafe locations before we see an OPP presence. So I do hear Acting Mayor Barrie Ward around drawing attention to it. I'm hoping there's a step that we're taking that is just proactive. I believe that's already happening. So I'm kind of a 50-50 around, do we actually need to even voice it in the motion? But I am seeing a resident concern around safety that is aligned, I believe, to the intention of Councillor Thompson. So at this point in time, keen to have more dialogue over the coming week, but I will support keeping Councillor Thompson's motion in place at this time.
Councillor Morales.
Thank you. To the General Manager of Infrastructure, your background experience is engineering. This might be a planning question. I'm going to start with you. In your objective professional experience, do you think there's a chance that a ministry would confuse or conflude a ramp with a potential encampment that, I'm just looking here at my Apple map, I'm going to guess is probably 450 meters away, including the walk, not as the crow flies, you couldn't do that, from a different location, or from a technical perspective, a ramp is a ramp, meaning the road, the accessory sidewalks, and maybe the setbacks.
Mr. Ernie Sundram, do you feel you can answer that?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Morales, if I understand the question properly, I think you're asking what is the extent of the area around the ramp that would be considered to be part of the ramp. So the MTO typically has property on either side of the ramp which belongs to the MTO, and anything within that property would be considered to be part of the MTO infrastructure.
Okay, perfect. So as per that, do you see any concern with the wording that Councillor Thompson is putting forward? Because again, based on the current encampments, it's not within the proximity. Now, I know the property that you may not have the actual measurement, right, of what's at Bayfield, what's at Mapleview, but it's generally understood that it's not even close. So there wouldn't be an opportunity to either accidentally or purposefully use the motion as a reason to spill over into the encampments.
Mr. Arian Syndrome?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Morales, I think it's tough for me to answer that question at this point. I think the MTO has operating procedures and operating policies that also address safety and any type of encroachment on their property. And I think it's those policies and procedures that they would apply in assessing any individual circumstances.
Okay, perfect. Be interesting to see the setback. Again, knowing where the encampment is, the ramp doesn't mean the highway, right? The encampment is a little bit more towards the actual highway and then set back. So while the answer wasn't as definitive as I expected, but again, I appreciate your objective answer. I'm not here to get told I'm right. I'm here to get the objective reality. I don't have these concerns. And there's always the reality that if the OPP takes this memo, report, whatever you want to call it, and goes, okay, we're going to act on it, they're probably going to ask us what we meant. And I trust our staff to be able to communicate the context that the councillor intended with his motion.
Is there a question there? It was just a statement. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Jim Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor Ward. I'll be quick. I think what we're kind of boiling this down to is not necessarily the wording, but the response, the concern of the response to this correspondence to OPP. And I'm going to gather to assume that given the highlight we put on this already tonight, they're probably going to be only more encouraged to act than what they were before. But I would say what's probably most important to us, and there's basically 4 responses to encampments that communities have. One is clearance with little or no support. One is clearance with support. The third is tacit acceptance, and informal sanctioning is the 4th one. So I would suggest that if we've raised this to the height of that we have, that police will probably, OPP will probably respond. What we'd want would be clearance with support, because they're probably not going to formally accept or sanction this one by the highway. So I think, and by next week, I'm sure we can have an amendment that talks about how we'd like the response to be in working with our community providers. So outreach staff, trained professionals are intervening, not just police sweeping them off the area. So that's really what you'd want. So that, and I'm happy to leave it as is, and maybe by next week we'll have maybe an amendment that would speak to how we'd like the response to be carried out, because clearance with support is far favorable than a clean sweep without any action and support. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll call the vote, and this is to eliminate paragraph 3. All in favor? Opposed? It is defeated. Okay. Any other amendments on the motion before we have a vote on the twice amended original motion put on the floor by Councillor Thompson? If not, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. That will be coming forward to Council for ratification next week. We are now, that wraps up the separate report. Yes, sorry, that's right. Forgot about that. Separate report. That wraps up the agenda items except for inquiries and announcements. Inquiries. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Just a really quick inquiry to Ms. Reed. I see that the new app was launched and it looks fabulous, but if I read it correctly, people have to download the new app. It does not replace the old existing app. Is that correct?
Mr. James Reed?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Acting Mayor Deputy Ward, to Councillor Thompson. That is correct. The old app, Ping Street, has been decommissioned. And so as soon as the new app is available in the Google Play Store, which should happen in a couple days, we are going to be using the existing Ping Street app to promote our new app. So any resident who goes to Ping Street will get the notification to download the new app. So this is kind of the look and feel of our new app, which is available right now in the App Store. And I'm super excited about it. It really gives all the information that residents need right on your phone. And really, if you look through it, and I encourage you all to download it for those of you who have Apple devices, that is available today. And just to play around, there's so many neat features that are new and improved from the previous app. We obviously we've kept our exciting, most popular one, which was Report a Problem. And from there, it's now linked to all the portal, like our Service Barrie portal. But if something's not available on the Service Barrie portal, we've created new Report a Problem functionality through our app. So you can actually do more from our app than you can even do on our website. We also have a special tile. So right now we're using that to promote and feature the 2022 municipal election. But that will change, obviously, when the election's over. We'll replace it with whatever's happening. We do have, obviously, transit, a new feature that's in the app that I think is going to be really timely for parents who are playing sports, outdoor sports. You can sign up to get notification if there's a sports field closure. So if you're waiting to see if your child's soccer game or baseball game is being canceled, as soon as it's updated on our website, you'll get a notification in your app, which will be super convenient. There's also maps that include bike routes, heritage walking tours, just so much more than what we had in our previous app. So I'm really excited and wanted to acknowledge the amazing work of our communications and our IT team who've made this happen in very quick order. So the one last thing I wanted just to highlight is that there is an app feedback button at the bottom of the app. And residents are encouraged to give us your feedback, because we will be continually improving this and adding new features based on the feedback that we hear. This was just kind of our first launch for our new city app. So find it today in the Apple Store under City of Barrie, and in the next couple days for Android. It just takes, we've put in the request at the same time, but the system just takes a few days to sync up. So thank you for the question.
Any other inquiries? Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, actually, thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. I just wanted to touch base actually on the app, because I literally downloaded it as we were in between our two sessions today, and it is amazing how much more it's on here, and it's so easy to use, even to set up for your garbage pickup schedule and things like that. So it is definitely a significant improvement over our previous app, and like you just mentioned, obviously there's some ability that you can even refine it even better. So for something that literally just started, it is amazing how easy and intuitive it is that if I can figure it out, anybody can.
Okay, Councillor Morales.
This questions or questions, right?
Inquiries.
Inquiries? I might do the RF don't you agree at the end. Just to reiterate, again, in the past, Ms. James Reed, I've been objectively, it's my new word now, I've been objectively critical of maybe Access Barrie in the past, but I'm also objectively very supportive. And I can't echo more what my colleagues have said. This app is stellar. It is slick. I'm not going to be surprised, not if, but when we win an award for it. And I think, you know, at a future AMO, may be good to share with our colleagues around the province, because, as you said, you've been able to centralize the main uses that people want out of a city, out of Service Barrie, out of different departments, and now they have it in the palm of their hand, watching meetings, pulling up minutes.
Okay, Councillor Morales, this is not an inquiry.
So, is it, Ms. James Reed, is this the kind of thing that we share with other municipalities at either an AMO conference or different municipal interactions?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Ward, to Councillor Morales. Thank you for the inquiry. Certainly, as we launch new initiatives, we often get interest, because our municipal colleagues, as we do with other municipalities, watch the media, watch our social media feeds, and they get interest that way. So that's typically how that works between other municipalities. Way back when we launched Ping Street, we were I think we were the second municipality that launched that app, and at the time it was great too. So I would look forward to getting our colleagues who may reach out to us and share the information. And if there is an opportunity at AMO, we certainly would look for that as well. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Any other inquiries? See none. Announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Councillor Rietma.
I just have one. June 1st, which is this coming Wednesday, we have a neighborhood meeting starting at 5 o'clock, dealing with 114 Blake Street, which is the site of the former Simcoe Motel. It's a virtual meeting, and residents are invited to connect to it through our city website. So that's this Wednesday, June the 1st, 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I have a couple of announcements. The first one is there is a great opportunity for individuals across Barrie to attend free in-person trauma-informed training. This is being provided with much thanks to the Barrie Women and Children's Shelter and in partnership with the Barrie Public Library. So for those that are interested and available to attend, it is being held on June the 29th at 9:30 a.m. until 11 a.m. You need to pre-register, but it is free and a really great opportunity if you haven't had access to that type of training or dialogue to explore trauma-informed training and the importance of having that lens. The other update is, in addition to June being a hot month for, I think it's Seniors Month, it's Bike Month, and it's Parks and Rec, there are some really amazing drop-in opportunities. So I want to thank staff for that, but I did want to do a shout out for our Seniors Advisory Committee. We will be in the community as your committee members through June. In particular, on the 9th of June, you can find us at Parkview Place with information around senior services and access to us directly if you have feedback about your interest in the committee in the next term, and also in general opportunities for us to look at supporting topics of conversation related to seniors' health, well-being, transportation, and housing. Lastly, I did see this today. There is a weather concern around the heat tomorrow. So as curbside collection on Tuesday affects the majority of residents in Ward 3, a quick announcement, if you haven't seen it posted on the city website, residents are being asked to have your curbside collections out by 5:30 a.m. I believe they're starting sooner than 7. So please pay attention to that. And that's everything for me. Thank you.
Okay. I have quite a few. Oh, sorry. Councillor Morales.
Yeah, Acting Mayor Ward, I just don't want to speak after you. I'm just getting messages here that the open air Dunlop starts this Saturday. So come one, come all. And also on Saturday at 9 a.m. Meridian Place, the Kids Roll and Stroll Parade. I'm just pulling up the event invite here. As part of Open Air Dunlop, basically help asking people to kick off Open Air Dunlop season with a Kids Roll and Stroll Parade. Bring your bike, trike, roller skates, skateboard, scooter, or walk along. And then it'll just be fun activities for families.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morales. I proclaim May 29th to June 4th as the National Accessibility Week. I raised the flag for that today, as a matter of fact, and to highlight the great work that our Accessibility Committee does in the City of Barrie. And June is also Indigenous Heritage Month, Indigenous Peoples Day, and Deafblind Awareness Month. Help shape the city's new website. We want your input so we can make improvements and help you find information that interests you. Visit barrie.ca/feedback to tell us what you would like to see on the City of Barrie's new website. Survey closes May 31st. So there's a few hours left, there are a few 24 hours left. Until September 20th, 9 patio restaurants in Barrie's downtown now have temporary art installations displayed on their patio fencing as part of the Brightening Barriers public art project, which pairs local and regional artists with business owners. To learn more, visit barrie.ca/publicart or come down to Open Air Dunlop on Saturday. The province proclaims the month of June each year as Ontario Bike Month. Bike Month is an opportunity to try riding a bike for the first time, learning new cycle skills, or getting out on the trails and connecting with people. Bike Month takes place from June 30th to May 30th to June 30th. To learn more, visit barrie.ca active transportation. Just as a note, Barrie's first ever Bike the Night event will take place in September 17th. Share the beauty of your gardens. This year's Community in Bloom theme is the Year of the Garden. To participate in the 2022 campaign, submit a photo of your beautification efforts along with the participation form. The registration deadline for this year's submissions and photos is July 6th. Visit barrie.ca Communities in Bloom, all one word, to learn more and fill out the online registration form. Throughout the month of June, the City of Barrie was supporting and collaborating with community partners to provide opportunities for all residents to learn about and celebrate the unique heritage, diverse culture, and significant contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. The month-long event will kick off on June 2nd with a flag raising at Barrie City Hall. Programming will be featured throughout the month with a focus on bringing people together to celebrate and learn. I know there's everything from story time at the libraries to drumming along the waterfront and an Indigenous movie in Meridian Square. For the most up-to-date schedule, please visit www.barrie.ca events. As we heard earlier, June is Recreation Month and Park Month, which is a movement that promotes the benefits of recreation and parks for physical, social, and environmental health. Recreation and Culture Services is creating a calendar of activities, giving residents options to get active every day. For more information, including the full June is Recreation and Parks Month calendar, visit the Barrie website, barrie.ca. As mentioned, an aspect of it was mentioned by Councillor Kungle. This month, the city is celebrating seniors and the tremendous contributions they make to the vibrancy of our community. We are holding 2 open houses, which will include games, fitness opportunities, refreshments, and other special activities. The one mentioned by Councillor Kungle is at Parkview Centre on June 9th from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And you can pre-register by calling 705-737-0755. There's also one a few days earlier on Monday, June 6th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Allendale 55 Plus Center on Bayview Drive, and you can pre-register by calling 705-728-5141. We're now at the circulation list. Comments on the circulation list dated May 16th. Sorry, May 19th. Tonight's circulation list. No comments or questions on any of those? Okay. That completes the General Committee agenda. The next council meeting will be Monday, June 6th, 2022. General Committee is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.